Hey everyone, back for another Baseball America Top 100 Prospects mailbag here. Geoff, Pontes, and JJ Cooper. I'm editor-in-chief. Geoff is our lead prospect, one of our lead prospect writers. We've been working on the top 100. We've been working on prospects 365 days a year. That's what we do at Baseball America. And we get a lot of great questions about that too. And we want to answer one of those today. Talk about the Mariners, because we have a question about Lazaro Montes, the outfielder for the Mariners. Question is from one of our readers says Lazaro Montes dropped from 41 in our in-season rankings to 97 in our new top 100. He seemed to be really rising up the ranks, and I felt like finished last year on a hot streak. Why the huge drop in the rankings? So, Geoff, I would say that we kind of love the Mariners farm system right now. A lot of those guys in the top 100, a lot of other guys not that far off of the top 100. But why did we drop Lazaro Montes in our most recent rankings?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, some questions around the bat to ball ability. The swing decisions are okay, but sort of grade on, internal team models as below average. Teams put a 30 grade on the bat to ball skills. It kind of tracks. He had a 26.2% in zone miss rate last year, 31.5% overall. The impact is there, but it's not so outlier. It's not like Zaire Hope or, a Roman Anthony or one of those guys that's putting up these 107, 108 mile per hour, 90th percentile exit velocities. The high end is there. He puts the ball in the air consistently. But beyond that, there are some questions about the supporting tools. How, is he going to be able to play an outfield corner consistently over the years? Is he an asset or is he, more of a risk when he's on base in terms of taking extra base and doing some of those things. So I do think he's still an interesting hitting prospect. I probably like Lazaro Montes from like a fantasy perspective more than I would like him from a real life perspective. But, if you're going to be this type of hitter, I really do need to see sort of 70 raw power coming out of those EVs. And I think that's a question mark. He's still a good power hitter. He still does damage. The underlying, ex-Wobacon type of numbers are still above average. He had a 60% line drive plus fly ball rate. But I do think that some of that stuff is going to materialize in probably a lower batting average guy. The swing decisions will have to go along with that. He's going to have to walk to maintain this profile. And it's just a profile that I think has more risk than people realize, even if somebody does a lot of damage. It's not like, in Xavier Isaac, where maybe he is, a first baseman, but pretty good there. But the outlier power is so outlier that you're a little bit more willing to buy into it. The swing decisions are better. So even if he has that swing and miss, you're still buying into the fact that there's 70, maybe 80 grade raw power here. And I don't know if we're seeing that with Montes.
And that's where I would say when we say why the drop in the rankings, what we saw last year is some of these numbers back up, right? Like he obviously started in the Cal League, ended up moving up to the Northwest League, but you're kind of hoping that those numbers are going to continue to climb. When you talk about a player like this, he's obviously pretty physically mature. I don't want to make this sound like that. If you've ever seen Lazaro Montes, this is not, a bean pole who you're like, oh, once he adds some strength, he'll fill out, and then watch out. No, but you do expect though, as a guy, who's still very young in his case, as they go from their teenage years to their 20s, the power continues to grow as hopefully the decisions and all improve. We didn't see that as much with Lazaro Montes. We've seen kind of the opposite trend as he's faced a little bit more advanced pitching. That's what also raises a little bit of a concern, right?
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. And his late season hot streak, I think we sort of have to put into perspective of where he was playing those games. Their high A park in Everett. Go and look at the dimensions of that park. It is, I think it's maybe 365 to center field. It's kind of weird. There's like a parking lot in right field. It's one of the more shallow outfields in all of professional baseball. So I do think that you have to take some of the power numbers that guys hit for at Everett with a grain of salt. They're also only facing what, 5 other teams in that league. So they're seeing a lot of the same pitchers over and over and over again throughout these different series. He only had, a chunk of his season there. So maybe that's less of a concern. But I do think that, you put all that stuff together and there's definitely, some question marks as to really how good this hot streak was at the end of the season.
Officially 330 to left, 395 to center, 330 to right at Funko Field. So just wanted to add that.
And like if I'm correct, it might even be like 365 to like right center field. Like it's a very weird park, you know. Like it's a Cape Cod League kind of like high school field dimensions.
So with that though, I think the other thing I wanted to kind of just explain with this is you touched on this, but Montes is a big guy who's not particularly fleet of foot. Like he's a near bottom of the scale runner now, and that's going to kind of always limit him in the outfield. So you're talking about it's really a bat. It's not even a bat first. It very well could be a bat only profile. Guys can make that work, but that's where you have to be really, really impressive. The example that like the hope that you always hope for with a guy like this, well, I think Jordan Alvarez's athleticism has always been undersold. You know, Jordan Alvarez is a better athlete than you think, and that's kind of led to his success, I think, in a lot of ways, whenever he can stay healthy. But that's what you're talking about is okay, if you can be that kind of hitter, doesn't really matter how much value you're giving defensively. That's fine. But if you can't be that kind of hitter, that's where if you're just a grade or two below that as a hitter or a grade or two below that as power, you go from being that impact player to being more of a guy who it's like, oh, you spend, you're a useful player with a short peak kind of guy. And that's where this gets kind of like that. So if you, again, we're trying to answer the question. There's a lot of very intriguing Mariners prospects. Montes is still one of those. Why he's in the top 100. There is still here, I would say, pretty impressive offensive upside if it all clicks. But I would say that also what we saw in 2024 adds a little bit more questions, a little bit more concerns on that as we try to keep reporting on these. We're not trying to be stuck in, well, we had him this place here, so now he's got to stay there. We try to be like, this is the most accurate we can do this right now. And Geoff, as we look at that, I think we feel pretty good about Lazaro Montes being on the 100, but very much kind of on that back end fringe of the 100 where, let's also be clear, if you're in the 90s on this list and someone else says, why don't you have so-and-so? I think he's like 105. There's no difference almost. I mean, there's a difference because we include 100. So one guy's on, one guy's off. But the difference between where Lazaro Montes ranks on here and a guy who might be 10 spots off this list is infinitesimal, isn't it?
Yeah, I really think so. We always sort of say that there's like a tier almost like 70 to like 150. There's sort of this range where there's a lot of guys that's kind of like choose your own adventure of like what profile you like more. Maybe you believe in the player development of a given system a little bit more. He has a set of tools that you believe in a little bit more. He's a bat speed guy with, defense. And yeah, I think that it's reasonable to think that he could be a little bit higher. It's probably reasonable to think he could be even a little bit lower. So, for sure. I think that if there's some rebound and some growth in terms of the power, I certainly could change my mind on it. But the questions with the hit tool and not having sort of that 70 grade raw power or bat speed definitely make me a little bit more uh, on the fence with, just how good Montes could be.
So that's the answer to the question on the mailbag today about Lazaro Montes. If you enjoy this, whole lot more, baseballamerica.com. Check it out and join us because we're talking about baseball 365 days a year here on YouTube. Subscribe here on the YouTube channel as well, but join us at baseballamerica.com.